All right, a happy Thursday. Hopefully, everyone is doing great out there. Greetings from the Windy City. We are in the final day, at least for me, of the Chicago Combine that's been going on all week. Players right now are in the process of doing their team interviews. We've got 5-on-5 this afternoon. Uh, this is day two of the 5-on-5 competition. There are individual pro days at night that happened Wednesday night, that happened Thursday, and will happen on Friday. And then players will continue their medical testing throughout the weekend. Then they will scatter back to their own homes or where they've been working out, and then they'll start their individual workouts sometime in early June. So we are in full swing, certainly with draft coverage, with NBA coverage, with free agency down the road, trades, everything. We are going to do a video on the Golden State Warriors. They became team 24 to lose in the playoffs. There are six teams remaining, which is pretty remarkable where we are right now. But Golden State certainly it loses in 5 games to Minnesota. Of course, a lot of it has to do with the injury to Stephen Curry, who was injured in game one. There is that kind of unknown as far as where this Golden State team would have been if Curry stayed healthy. I don't want to discredit Minnesota because I think it's easy for people to say if Curry was healthy that Golden State was going to advance. I mean, listen, I think it would have been a terrific series. It was an unbalanced series after Curry got injured. Certainly, what we've seen the last couple of games here. Certainly, Game 5 in Minnesota and Game 4 in Golden State here. So they're done. We move on to the offseason. There are some big questions as far as what's going to happen next. I think in the big picture of things, it was a successful season. I wrote that they are in a better position now than they were in early February before the trade deadline. They are in a better position now than they were last offseason when they were trying to kind of navigate the Klay Thompson free agency that turned into Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton. The window to compete for a championship, I believe, is still open. I do believe it's a 2-year window. There is certainly a sense of urgency. I say it's a 2-year window just based on how each of Curry, Green, and Butler's contracts are lined up. All three players have 2 years left under contract. Draymond has a player option in that second year. We're going to talk about him in a minute. So we are kind of in that heightened awareness that we're kind of in win now mode. And that's a big reason why Mike Dunleavy Jr., their general manager, went out and got Jimmy Butler at the trade deadline because this was basically a sinking ship. There was no guarantees that they would even have gotten into the plan if the roster stayed intact, but they go out and get Butler. They go on a terrific run. They get into, certainly the play-in. We know what happened. Beating Houston on the road in Game 7 is a remarkable feat for this group. And I know we don't give out participation trophies as far as what happens during the season. I think where Golden State was and where they are, where they ended, they should be credited for that. Ran into a better team, and when you ran into a better team and you don't have one of the best players in the NBA, this is kind of where your fate is. So what happens next when we go into the offseason here? I think there's a couple things to think about. And I've been getting some questions about the apron and what happens. The apron rules where Golden State they were a first apron team because they went out and signed DeAnthony Melton. That triggered it. The apron rules stay in effect until June 30th. And then basically we get a reset starting July. The NBA calendar works from July 1 to June 30th. Once July 1 comes, we get a total reset of the apron rules. However, if you go out and send cash in a trade, or you go out and you aggregate contracts, or you take back more money, the apron rules for next season start to apply. Hypothetical example. Golden State trades Buddy Hield at the draft, hypothetical, and you take back more money in a contract. Let's say you take back, I don't know, $10 million. I don't even think you could do it because of where you are right now. I'm just giving hypotheticals. Then the first apron gets triggered for next season here. So the apron rules, as we said, refresh as far as where they are. Where they are is they've got to figure out a couple things here. And I wrote about this before they would won in game 7. A couple priorities for them, and then we'll talk a little bit about Kaminga because that's going to be kind of the focus in the offseason here. A couple of needs, certainly a consistent third scorer. You saw what happens when good things happen in game 7 with Buddy Hield. We certainly saw when Curry goes out, basically you're kind of left with really Jimmy Butler as your primary scorer. And certainly we saw some good things from Brandon Podziemski in game 5. But there's got to be consistency outside of Curry. And I know Butler wasn't right towards the end of this Minnesota series, but I still consider him kind of your number 2 guy. But there's always a question as far as who your third guy is. And then the other thing is that certainly you're going to need some front court help. You went small ball. I know there was success during the regular season. That group with Moody, Podziemski, Green, Butler, and Curry, I think they were 16-3, and you did find some success, but you are going to need some front court help. How do you go out and kind of address those needs? I don't expect seismic changes in Golden State. I don't see them going out and all of a sudden trying to go get Kevin Durant or Giannis or a player like that because of 2 reasons. The first is when you made the Butler trade, you basically eliminated most of your outgoing salary that you can include in a trade. There's no $26 million player anymore, unless you want to include Draymond Green to the mix here. You already traded Wiggins. You traded Melton, who's going to be a free agent. You traded Schroeder, who's going to be free. Like those, like when you want to go out and get a $50 million player, you got to basically send out like $43 million. There's not enough salary to cobble together to go out and do that. You do have the draft equity to be in play. You have basically 4 first-round picks. You can trade 26, 28, 30 if it's 1 to 20, and then in 32. So you do have the equity in draft picks to go out and be a player if you want to do that. It's hard for me to say, last year we talked about Lauri Markkanen. This year I'm sure Giannis is going to be talked about. I just don't see you having enough things to go out and, unless of course you want to put Draymond in play, to be able to go out and do something like that. I think Kaminga, figuring out the path or the direction of Jonathan Kaminga is going to be one of the more intriguing storylines this offseason, based on potential, based on him being an afterthought for most of the season, based on what we saw in this Minnesota series where he basically kind of came to life. There is still that untapped potential. It's, before the Minnesota series, you could have said, hey, you might be better off just kind of trying to explore signing trades. What's your walkaway number with Kaminga? He's got a $7.9 million qualifying offer. I know it's been reported that it's 10-1. It's not 10-1. It's 7-9 because he didn't reach starter criteria in Golden State. So they're going to tender him a qualifying offer by June 29th. He will get that offer. That will make him a restricted free agent. Now, the question is, what's going to be the cost to keep Kaminga? There's only one team out there, which is the Brooklyn Nets, that can go out and make a significant offer sheet on Jonathan Kaminga. Listen, Brooklyn has been known. They did it in the past of basically putting down a whopper sheet of offer sheets. They did it with Tyler Johnson. They did it with Otto Porter going back. They did it with Alan Crabb. The danger of doing offer sheets is when a team elects not to match the offer sheet. So if Brooklyn came in and said, we're going to do 3 years, $90 million for Jonathan Kaminga, and Golden State says, fine, we're not going to do that, then you're basically stuck with that contract. So there is a danger as far as putting down offer sheets. I think where Golden State is, I think you let him test the market. I think you let him, listen, if he wants to go sign an offer sheet, then that's kind of the risk you play. I do think the number for Kaminga is probably, I still think he's an $18 to $20 million guy. I know the cap's going up, and I know where you are financially. I think you are an 18 to $20 million. He's an 18 to $20 million guy. If you want to go up to 22 to 23, fine, based on potential loan. I'm still wary as far as committing long term. I know the owner loves him. I've read it, certainly in the athletic piece. But I do think you are a little bit in danger if you're going more, because you're 17 and a half below the luxury tax. The luxury tax is not as important as it once was. The aprons are. The 17 and a half below luxury tax, they're 25 and a half below the first and $37 million below the second apron. So you do have the flexibility to go out and sign him to a $22 million contract and still have a workable solution as far as to be able to try to stay under that first apron here. The Kaminga decision plays a significant role in what exceptions you have in the offseason. So, for example, if you sign Kaminga to, let's say, a $20 million salary, then basically you have the $5.7 million tax mid-level exception to go out and use to sign a free agent. If you let him walk, if you just say, you know what, Jonathan Kaminga, we're going to let you walk, you have the $14.1 million non-tax mid-level exception. There is also the scenario, of course, and that's going to be brought up as far as sign-in trades. When you trade out a player in a sign-in trade, it does not trigger the hard cap. When you acquire a player in a sign-in trade, that triggers the first apron hard cap. Sign-in trades are certainly tricky because based on what you're, I know this is going to sound confusing, based on what's coming back to you, if you're taking back more money, that could certainly trigger the first or second apron here. So if and then there's the other thing. So let's say if you can't get a deal done with Kaminga, and there's a team out there that says, you know what, we really like Jonathan Kaminga at $25 million, $30 million, then you can work out a sign and trade. However, remember the salary coming back now basically puts you over either the first or second apron. So there's a lot of technicality to that. I think probably when maybe we get closer to free agency, we can probably dive deeper. There's also what the money, let's say the first year of Kaminga's salary is like $30 million. For trade purposes, that doesn't count as outgoing salary. It's basically 50% of that salary. So basically, if you got to kind of find that sweet spot, it's basically $15 million of salary. You can probably get a $22 to $23 million player coming back somewhere in that range here. So there are some complexities to basically doing a Jonathan Kaminga sign and trade. So, but Kaminga basically plays a significant role as far as what is going to happen this offseason here, because based on where you are financially. As I said, the top front office priorities basically trying to leave this window to compete, this 2-year window to compete for a championship open. We talked about Kaminga, extension candidate. Really, the only extension candidate is Draymond. It's hard for me to think that Golden State's going to extend Draymond. He's got 2 years left. The second year of the contract is a player option. As I said, basically Curry, Green, and Leonard. Curry, Green, and Butler are all lined up as far as from a contractual standpoint. It's hard to see them extending past that with Draymond. They also Kevin Looney, Gary Payton, Trace Jackson Davis. Those are your other extension candidates. Your free agents are Kaminga, Payton, Looney, Knox, Santos has a team option, Pat Spencer, Quentin Post has a team option, Braxton Key, Taron Armstrong, he was on a 2-way. Your draft equity, we kind of talked about it. You have the 41st pick in the draft this year from Miami. It's probably more of a 2-way guy. You can trade, even though you've already traded this year's pick to Miami. We look ahead as far as the Stepien rule, as far as the inability to trade back to back. Once the draft starts, now we're looking ahead to 26. So you can do 26, 28, 30 if it's 1 to 20, and then 32. You owe to the Wizards in 30, a pick that goes 21 to 30. So that is it kind of in a nutshell. All in all, it's a good year, as I said, based on where they were. I know in Golden State, you are judged on winning championships. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Certainly, the Curry injury played a big role. But as I said, keep in mind the Kaminga decision as far as what happens with him this offseason.